let's talk a little bit about backgrounds in CSS. And more specifically, we're going to be talking about background colors and background images. Now, traditionally, you would have only been able to use a background color or a background image to accomplish a given look, but now we can actually hand code in our CSS gradients. So we have a few more options now, but in this lecture, we're going to be talking about background color, which is something we've already seen, right? We can look at our style.css here, and we see that we've applied a background color to our body and to our div. So we know the syntax for doing this, and we know the right property. Now, if you recall, our body here is going to be our selector. Our background color is going to be the property. It's going to be what we want to accomplish. And then the black is going to be the value. It's going to be the value of the property that we're selecting, right? So we already know how to do a background color. But thus far, we've only really used words. We've typed in black or aquamarine, and we're not necessarily limited to just doing that. So we can use a color name, but a lot of times we want to be more specific, and we're going to have specific colors that we use for our website. We're not just going to want to hope that the red that they use is the red that we use, right? So we can also use hex values, and those are going to look, something like this. And this is actually just an example of white, but it may look anything like this too. It's going to be a random combination of letters and numbers. We can also use our RGB values, and those are going to look like this, where we'll have 3 separate values. So you may have, this is a common one, and that would be our RGB value. We may use these as well. But most likely in our actual projects, in our careers, we're going to be either using hex values or RGB. We're not going to use the actual names for colors. Now let's go ahead and take a look at working with background images. Okay, so let's go ahead and change our body background from a background color to a background image. And the property for this is going to be background image, and that's all we do. And after that, we can go ahead and insert our image. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to, and by the way, you can see all these different options here. We're actually going to type URL, and there's our options. And inside that URL, we're going to use quotations, and we're going to find our actual image. So I have one image stored in my images folder, so I'm going to select images, and then I have that future.png, that image we used earlier. So I'm just going to select that. And we also have to remember to close off every one of our statements here with a semicolon. So this is going to change the body background image to that future PNG image. And if I hover over the image, I can actually see a little thumbnail of it. The image is 1680 pixels wide by 1050 pixels high. So let's go ahead and save that and see how that looks with our new web page. Okay, so it's plenty big, but what I want to show you guys is what happens when we use a small image as our background image. So I'm actually going to run over to Google really quickly, and let's just grab a random image. I don't even know. Let's just do HTML5 again, just to stay consistent. Actually, no, we're learning CSS3. So let's do CSS3 images, and let's grab a smaller image, something that's not going to take up much space. This looks fine. So I'm going to view this image. Right click, save image as, and we're going to save this as CSS. And where do I want to save this? I'm going to save this to my desktop really quickly. Minimize, and let's go ahead and drag this CSS into our HTML practice folder inside our images folder, so we can then go ahead and easily use this. So that's going to be CSS. Oops, let's go back into brackets really quickly, and let's change this from future.png to CSS, and that's going to be a JPEG.jpg. All right, so let's save that and take a look. Okay, so what we're noticing now is that the background of our body is using the correct image, but it's actually repeating the image not only horizontally, so left to right, but it's also going to repeat vertically as well. And we can actually alter whether we want this to happen or not. And the way we do that is we select a background repeat. So let's go under our body here and let's start a new line. And we're going to use the property of background repeat. And from here we can do a couple things. We can either have it not repeat, We can have it, yes, repeat, and by default, it's going to repeat on X and Y. That's what repeat means. But we can also have it only repeat on the X-axis, only repeat on the Y-axis. So let's just go ahead and have no repeat so we can see what that looks like and save that and open this up once again, refresh it. Okay, so we're only seeing that background once. Now, obviously this looks terrible and we're just learning how as we go, but that's an example of how to work with a background image one and how we can specify what we want that background image to do. If we want it to repeat, we'll have it repeat. And a lot of times if we're using a pattern that's not necessarily as big as the page, we're going to have it repeat either horizontally or vertically and or both. Now let's take a look at one last thing, and this is going to be some shorthand that we can use for a background. Let's go back in here, and I'm going to actually delete all of this really quickly, and I'm going to show you guys how we can accomplish all of our different properties for our background image within one line. So what we're going to do is we want to assign this a background color, right? This is maybe perhaps if an image fails to load, we still have a background color. So we'll do background color, and we're going to give that black. Now, what we can do after that is we can actually, and let's make sure we don't close that off with a semicolon, is we can give that a space and do URL. And after that, we'll do the same syntax that we used earlier, which is going to be our images-css.png. Oh, I think that was a JPEG, so JPG. Close that off with a quotation, close those parentheses, and then I can also assign it a repeat value. So I don't want this to repeat, so I'm going to type in no repeat, and then let's go ahead and we'll stop that there and hit save. Go back up here. Oops. Let's go ahead and view this once more. So you'll notice that this didn't work. Why is our shorthand property not working? Well, let's go in and take a look really quickly. And I'm going to exit out of this. I'm going to minimize here. So we have background. Oh, so that's the problem here, is that I have background color selected, when what I really want is just the background parameter. So with background, we can actually assign all of its different properties. And those properties are going to be, we can select a background color, and that's what we start with. Our next option is to insert an image. So I inserted my image. And then we have the option for a repeat, which I did as well. And then on top of that, we actually have the option for a background attachment and then a background position. I've left those empty, but we can actually accomplish all of this with one line of code. So let's save that and take a look. Okay, there we go. So now we're seeing exactly what we have there. We have our background image, and if we were to display this or take this image out, or if this image weren't going to load, we're getting that black background color. So notice that it's going to apply the background color first of black. Well, what if I change this to green? Let's save that, take a look, and now the background color is green, but we have our background image. So that's a little bit shorthand for how we can get all of our background properties on one line of code. Now, if you're going to use this shorthand, like I said, make sure you stay consistent across your code. If you're not going to use the shorthand, you want to write out each individual property, make sure you stay consistent.